Now we are going to create a horizontal menu instead of a vertical one. So you are going to download a completely different zipped folder. And I'm just going to stick it inside CIT 180. And then I'm going to extract this. And I'm going to make sure that I put it in my lesson 10 folder. Okay, so lesson 10 is selected. And then I'm going to hit extract. And then when it's done, I'm going to go into VS Code and I should see my horizontal one there. And if I expand out, I've got all of those pages in there. So the good news is this is another one where we're only going to be changing the CSS file. And as we make changes, we're going to take a look at home. So I'm going to go ahead and open that one offline. And for some reason, it likes to open up in my other screen. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to add some CSS for navigation bar positioning. So what we want is the bar to be at the top. We want a little space on the left-hand side. So we're going to add nav, margin left, 40 pixels, and margin top, we're going to put 0 pixels. And then if you want to take a look at, actually, if we right click, we can see the source code. So for this, and I thought we were on the home. As you can see, we've got a list and then we've got, it's set up very similar to the other one where we have a list and then we have like a submenu list. And we are going to format navul, which is that outer list. We're doing that one first. And there is a lot for me to key in, so I'm going to pause this. So what we've done code-wise here is for our menu, the menu itself, we are applying a gradient to the background. So it's white at the top, green, and then white at the bottom. And with the gradient, the colors blend into each other. Then we have a box shadow. And so I've made the shadow 6 pixels on the bottom and on the right. I've added some blurring to it. And you can see I'm using RGBA coloring and I've got some opacity set on there. That was part of CSS3 that we covered. Then for padding, the top and the bottom are 0. The right and the left have 20 pixels, which makes sense in a horizontal menu. You want some space on the right and the left. List style is set to none because I don't want to see my bullets. Position is relative, which means it is relative to the location that it first displays on the page. We are going to display it inline using an inline table because this is going to give us the rows, and the font color is going to be white. We are going to make it a heavier weight. 900 is bold-faced, kind of a heavier bold. So let's save this, and we'll reload. Okay, so we're getting there. We are going to make it look a lot better. Then what we need to do is format each of these lines because we've done the UL, which is the unordered list, but we haven't formatted the lines. So let's do nav UL LI, and we're going to display that as an inline table. Saving it. Okay, so now it's starting to look a little bit more menu-like. We are going to change the hover. So for that, it is nav ULLI hover. And hover is when you point at any of the lines. Get rid of the space. And so we are going to say background, radial, gradient. So another gradient. And we'll do white and green. So a radial gradient is basically one circle of color that blends into another. Let me save this. And you can kind of see it. You'll be able to see it better once we make this menu bigger, but you see how there's like a white spot and it goes out to green? That is a radial gradient. Now we are going to format the anchors. So this is nav ULLI A. And so those are going to be display block. This is a pull down menu. So we're displaying the menu items across, but when we point, we want them to go down. So we have display block. Let's do some padding. So top and bottom are 25 pixels. Left and right are 40. Font color is white, and we're getting rid of the underlining. So for those of you that were getting annoyed, it should be gone. Let's reload. Okay, so we still have a little work to do, but we are getting there. Now, we're going to add a little more. So let's do ULLI hover. Whoop. So when we point at an anchor, what we want it to do is change the color, the font color, to black and get rid of the underlining. And let's reload. Okay, so now it's changing the color to black, making sure that we don't have anything underlined. Now for the submenu, which is this. Okay, we don't really want this to display unless when we're pointing, okay, when we've got the hover going on. If there is a nested unordered list, then we want it to display. So we have some code for that. So nav UL LI hover. Okay, and that is referring to all of these main menu items. Okay, so when we are hovering, if there is an unordered list, okay, which there is in the case of executive, okay, if there is an unordered list, then we want to display it, and we want it to display as a column. Let's reload. Okay, so you see how that went into a column. Here we go. So it's doing it on the hover, which is what we want. Now, when the page first displays, we don't want this little list to show at all. Okay, so we have to tell it to hide it. So that's nav UL. So this is our nested list, and we want display set to none. So just doing that, you're going to notice now it's gone. And then when we point, and I probably should make this wider, and we point, then we get our little nested list. Now there's some additional formatting that we're going to add in here. We're going to say background, radial, gradient, white and green, border, radius, 0px, padding, 0px. Oops, helps if you spell things right. Position, absolute. And then we're going to set a z-index of 10 so it comes on top. So the position of the entire navigation bar is relative, but this position of the submenu should be absolute. We don't really want that changing. Now, you may have noticed that within the submenu, it is kind of hard to distinguish that these are buttons. So we are going to do some styling for the submenu. So that is nav ul, ul, li. So each line in that submenu, again, we want display block. And we're going to do a top and bottom border. So we've got border top, 1 pixel, should be a solid line. And for the color, it is hexadecimal. So we got the hashtag 757575. And we're going to do kind of the same thing for the bottom border. So it's going to be 1 pixel solid, and then a hashtag 757575. Position here is relative. And we're talking about the lines this time. Okay, these lines are relative, so just display them, in the order that they show up in the HTML. And then we're going to do text align left on those. So let's save and reload. And now they look a little bit more button-like. And then let's just do a little additional link styling for the anchors. So we've styled the submenu itself. Okay, that was here. We've styled each line in the submenu. And now we're going to do a little anchor styling. So we've got nav ul, ul, li, and it's the anchor that we're styling. Let's do a little padding. So this is going to be padding above and below the text, 15 pixels, and to the right and left of the text, which is 40 pixels. And let us do that lovely shade of gray for the font color. So hashtag 75 3 times. And then we're basically going to do similar settings here for the hover. So when we hover on the anchor, we're going to do a background set to black, and the color of the text is going to be light green. Let's save this and reload. Okay, and you can see how we just changed the color on the hover. So let me expand this out. This is how this looks. And I have had students want this top line rounded with the radial effect. And if you want to add that, you can. It is not required. Some of you may like how it looks. Okay, so this has a radial on it. And that would be, trying to find the best place to put this, nav ULLI. I believe that's where it is. So let's try border radius of 30, and we'll reload. Now, if you like that better, okay, by all means, use that. Okay, otherwise you can have the more rectangular look. Totally up to you. Okay, but once you have this working, you want to make sure you've saved all of your changes and then close your files.